You're plugged in for episode 132 of the 4Ps, and we've got lots of info to get to, so let's not waste time with any of the fancy setup. You're here, I'm here, let's go.
The 4Ps. Professional. Political. Practical. Personal.
Let's kick this off with something professional. As we get into these later stages of November and December, one thing that many of us are feeling and working on, no matter what the industry or field is, it's budget planning. In addition to revenue forecasting and staff costs and just other projections, our marketing plan and budget, that's part of my remit. Our jobs as marketers for clients is to find creative and innovative ways to connect, right, with consumers. The same holds true for us as agencies and consultancies looking to build out that awareness or trial and conversion with the brand side marketers and leaders and decision makers. Now is about when I'd probably start looking at the 2021 calendar to identify the right partnerships and events and networking opportunities and conferences and biz dev forums and thought leadership activities and other ideas, and then make some decisions about what to sponsor, what to speak at, and just what to attend. But this past year cannot truly be a real indication of what next year is going to look like, right? Or will it? Brand awareness for Revelation will not be as big of a priority heading into next year, but instead finding better, more efficient ways to convey the value proposition of what we can offer to brand marketers. It's more about engagement, really, and conversion now, working our way down that funnel. And you can do that in a number of different ways, but all of them are still kind of up in the air. Live in-person events are not happening. South by Southwest, CES, Cannes Lions, ANA events, Ad Week, summits, right? They're all now virtual, which are just not as ideal for meeting people and connecting with people. The great marketing guru, Ann Hanley, asked this question in her Total Anarchy newsletter a couple weeks back, right? It was, can virtual events be as good as in-person events? And the answer is a solid maybe, right? But it truly depends on what you're trying to achieve. For me, for us, my company, we have different objectives. Some of the panels and presentations are meaningful and enlightening and insightful. Some are just okay, and some are worthless. I've often found myself at these conferences waiting, counting down the minutes for the breaks, the coffee sessions, the networking connections, the lunches and dinners and happy hours, just to meet people, to talk, to get to know them. And that's what I've missed most this past year, both professionally and even personally. Virtual conferences are so much harder for those serendipitous connections. Sure, we've had virtual success and grown our client roster this year, in some cases replicating the in real life process of connecting with new contacts all the way down through closing deals and producing work. But frankly, it's just much harder and not as enjoyable. Now, maybe the second half of the year next year might get things back on track, pending vaccines and herd immunities and things like that. But I'm not holding my breath. Well, actually, I am holding in my breath with a mask around other people. But you know what I mean. If you've got great ideas for how to market agency and consultancy services to brands, I would love to hear them and talk about them, because maybe 2021 is the year we try something totally different. Maybe we go all in with Marketing Brew daily email newsletter sponsorship for a month. I don't know, but would love to know what you think. Something political. And for us, it's been a year of learning that our governments may not always be able to protect us, learning that a large portion of our country will ignore obvious facts and science and data to believe blatantly obvious lies that put all of our lives in danger. Learning the difference between an epidemic and a pandemic. And now that COVID is surging again, I don't even know what the level above pandemic is. but more than 1,000 Americans are dying of coronavirus every day on average. And that's a 50% increase in just the past month. And who knows what it'll be tomorrow. By some estimates, the U.S. may soon be on track to reach or exceed that crazy spring peak when all the toilet paper rush and hoarding was taking place, right? Back then, it was 2,200 people that were dying per day of coronavirus. And while we know that there was an election earlier this month to distract him, the president has not attended a coronavirus task force meeting in at least 5 months. 5 months, meaning since June. Most of us are capable of multitasking, but the president doesn't seem to be one of them. And it's a good thing he's only got 2 months left. But there's going to be a lot more pain and suffering coming in these next few months because of this inaction. And it's clear that he wants to leave Joe Biden with a burning house and no other choice but to shut down the country and then tell us that he told us so. The good news is that some of the most reluctant state leaders and governors who didn't want to act are starting to wake up. Doug Burgum of North Dakota, which is, it's bad there. And they've got critically understaffed hospitals and the highest per capita rates for coronavirus cases and deaths in the U.S. What he did, he put in place a mask mandate and new limits on indoor dining. What does that mean politically? Who cares? New Mexico, they announced the nation's most sweeping statewide measure of the fall season, issuing a 2-week stay-at-home order that began this past Monday. In Oregon, their governor, Kate Brown, she placed the state in a partial lockdown for 2 weeks starting on Wednesday. But the lack of leadership at a federal level, when coordinated efforts could save lives, it's criminal. And if you're waiting for the vaccine to quell this storm, do you really trust this current administration to handle things properly or even be honest about it? Something personal. You may not look at me and immediately think, now there's an athlete. But the truth is, I actually grew up playing many sports and being pretty good at many of them, enough to play somewhat competitively. One sport I did play a lot of, but never truly at a competitive level, was tennis. I took group lessons with friends during elementary school. I played a lot with some really good coaches and counselors at sleepaway camp for many years. But once I got to high school, I didn't really play enough. And then I stopped altogether until about a month ago. I hadn't touched a racket in 25 years. My son has been taking lessons for a few years now at a local private club. But with the rise of COVID, we switched to outdoor lessons with a different coach who happens to be a former NCAA champion and is a current Division I coach. We do this at an outdoor park, meaning I can hit around with a friend on an adjacent court while he's practicing and learning. Even after all these years, my muscle memory is still intact and my swing is still pure. I've been playing for a few weeks now and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Could I play at a competitive level? Definitely not. But can I hold my own and play respectably with just about anyone without embarrassing myself? Sure. It's kind of like riding a bike, which, again, I also hadn't done for several decades until earlier this year and then got back on without missing a beat. So a key lesson here. While it may be too late and very well be too far gone in our number of years to learn something new in life, you're never too old to tap back into things that you already learned and know how to do. So what old skill should I revisit next? Anyone have a saxophone that I could potentially borrow for a spell? All right, let's finish strong with something practical, because it's been nearly 2 years since I took on my current role as a senior leader and executive of a company, right? It's truly been an incredible experience. And while the autonomy and accountability have been steady, I can't honestly say that my confidence levels are always at their peak or where they should be. And I've been thinking a lot about this lately, and why, and just some of the lessons that I've gleaned from that. As a leader, confidence is clearly essential. Without it, you won't inspire anyone, and you may miss out on opportunities because you'll be afraid to go after them or seize them. But on the flip side, overly simplistic, absolute confidence isn't the answer either. Putting on airs and overestimating your own competence will inevitably blow up in your face and could permanently damage your credibility. Clearly, there's a balance here that matters, and being self-aware of when confidence is high or low, and then reconciling what the results are after that, it's critical for your growth. Some things I've learned along the way, well, one, success isn't simply contingent upon believing in yourself, no matter what anyone tells you. I can think of plenty of instances where overconfidence, it's been more harmful to success than actual underconfidence. Just take a look at the 45th president, who has proven that, contrary to what many think, overconfidence isn't harmless. Look, decision making is hard. People rarely have enough information to make truly educated decisions, and so they depend on their intuition to make choices, even big decisions and big choices. But intuition can and often does lead to mistakes. The lesson here is to use confidence to help you start the work you need to succeed, but not bypass it. Look, I'm in the middle of budget planning for 2021. We talked about this, right? And there's never been more uncertainty heading into a new year. So I don't take anything for granted. And I'm going to work constantly to lock in and then ultimately validate or update what it is that I forecasted. What's so interesting about confidence is that what you portray or see externally from others may not actually be a true indication of confidence. With difficult tasks, it's often easy to forget that others are struggling as well. Sometimes they hide it. Underconfidence is most common when people simultaneously know the limits of their own abilities but don't really know where or how or why others are limited. Then we may become discouraged, not because you're struggling or struggling any more than anyone else, but because you didn't see that others were struggling. So this budgeting exercise, right, that I'm doing, it's truly a great example. Making forecasts that consider a range of possible outcomes can help mitigate or avoid overconfidence. Most people are generally pretty bad at forecasting. It's just human nature. We tend to be too specific in our predictions. So to counteract this tendency, my practical advice is to try and allow for uncertainty with weighted forecasts, ranges, possible outcomes. Right? This is called expected value forecasting in the statistical world, which can be a powerful tool for forecasting. It's pretty simple. Instead of choosing a single outcome, you assign probabilities to multiple outcomes, or like weighted percentages to a range of outcomes. When you have a list of probabilities, you can then average out the outcomes and get a mathematical estimate of when you'll actually be finished with something, or what the revenue amount might be, or the cost might be. Another thing that's helped me to be smarter and more likely to succeed is crowdsourcing, including others, right? Including others that we know or trust or have confidence in, all right? That can help us just broaden our perspectives and help us challenge our own biases. I said this last week while talking about mentorship, but disagreement can be an essential tool in improving our forecasting ability. Learning how and why others disagree, that can help us expand our own thinking and then balance out errors that each person could make. Well, good leaders, good organizations bring together people with a range of perspectives to raise alternate ideas and produce better decisions. It takes courage to invite each other's inputs and even dissent, but the end result is going to be better decision making. So in these groups, a balance of confidence means finding the middle path to communicate honestly about what you don't know, drawing upon your experience, and as well as your ability, right, to just convey credible and well-calibrated information. This is what great leaders do best, and perhaps no area of life is more closely linked with confidence than leadership. A leader without confidence isn't a leader at all. If you don't believe in your own ability, you'll struggle to make decisions and earn the respect of the people that you're supposed to be leading. This includes being open to information, being aware of what you don't know, and knowing that clarity is essential both for yourself and for your team. And it starts with setting clear goals, but it's not enough. Leaders also have to make sure that they're receiving all the available information, not just the things that they want to hear. Now, ultimately, great leaders are confident enough to build organizations where people can raise questions and concerns, even if they go against what leadership initially believed. It's difficult to remain truly open to all information. But remember, the more info you have, the more perfect your confidence should be.